Khan, Shalom, Shalom. Hey, all praises to Yahweh, Bashem, Yahweh Shai. Right, Lord willing, right, everyone is well. Shalom to the elders, elder men, elder women in this truth. Shalom to the men that labor in this truth day in and day out. Shalom to the sincere sisters that are, continue to endure. Shalom to the children in this truth also. Right, all praise to the Most High Yahweh, Bashem, Yahweh Shai, man. And, right, as we see the days approaching, you know what I'm saying? The days are approaching. So we have to be very circumspect, to not get caught out there, right? We have to be circumspect, right? So, obviously by the title of the breakdown, man, going into can I eat halal foods, man? Right? Playing upon tables. Can I eat halal foods? Right? And there's so many precepts we could go to, but I kind of got some notes as well, right? And Lord willing, I'm gonna try to kind of be consistent with doing these breakdowns. You know what I'm saying, right? But before we get that, go to the book of Matthew, right? Classic precept. It's the book of Matthew, chapter 4, and I'll start at verse 4. It says, "But he answered and said, It is written, Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of Yahweh." And that's quoting the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 8 and 3, right? So, we're supposed to essentially see that? I have to turn the light on, man. Right? But nonetheless, man, right? And it might happen every now and then, but all praise to the Most High, right? Our daily intake of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding has got to be from this word, man. If it's from elsewhere, hey, well, you'll be known by your fruits, by what you do, how you act. You have no self-control. You have no control over your spirit. You're just a glutton, man. Right? You want to have wisdom, especially in this truth, that's of your own, man. You can't mix up the wisdoms, man. And just like you can't mix up the foods, just like you can't mix up the wines. You can't mix up different understandings and say, yeah, well, this is the truth. No, right? It has to be from a pure source, man. Let's go to Matthew chapter 9, right? On that mixing of the wines, man. You can't mix understandings, right? It's the book of Matthew chapter 9 and verse number 7. It says, "Neither do men put new wine into old bottles, else the wine slack it, else the bottles break, and the wine runneth out, and the bottles perish. But they put new wine into new bottles, and both are preserved." So you can't mix up the wines, man. You can't mix up doctrines. You can't mix Islam, Christianity, and the truth and put it together and say, "Yep, this is the new breakdown." Some people do that, right? And we can't be in that mindset, right? We have to make sure that the waters we're drinking from, they're untainted, man. Can't be some mix-up thing, man, right? Can't You have to find the source of living waters, man, which is supposed to be your daily intake, man. This is the book of John, chapter 7, and I'll start at verse 37. It says, "In the last day, that great day of the feast, Yahushua stood and cried, saying, If any man thirst, let him come unto me and drink." So if you're thirsting for knowledge, you're thirsting for wisdom, hey man, you should be watching the breakdowns, man. You should be asking the questions, right? Sending the questions to respective camps and their emails, right? Might even put it in the comments in certain videos that brothers do, right? Your camp leaders or in chats or whatever, man. Right? That's what you should be doing, right? You shouldn't just be winging it, right? And just doing nothing, right? Can't just and you can be brought the wisdom, right? But it's down to you if you're gonna drink of it, man. Not everyone is ready, right? Let alone to drink of the cup that of what the Most High has given them. But not everyone's ready to even drink of this wisdom, man. When you start understanding, right? Shalom as well to the brother. Shalom to Sister Carmel. Shalom to Yeshaya, who, right? Shalom, right? Oh, Lord, no, I didn't like butcher that, but Like, you gotta be ready, man, to drink of that cup, man. When you drink of the cup of the truth, you gotta separate from, like, you gotta separate from who you gotta separate, right? You gotta be apart from who you gotta be apart. I was telling my friend today, man, right? Shalom, minority 144, right? I was telling my friend today, though he's, lukewarm, or he's in the world, let's put it like that. Kind of telling him, like, the people that I have around me now are the people that, are supposed to be here, innit? So right. And that's that, man. Right? The people, those that really want the knowledge, they're really gonna come and drink of the cup, man. Right? They're really gonna want to dive into the understanding and see, hold on, yeah, this is what I gotta deal with. That's what this truth is about, man. So we gotta be ready to drink of the cup that we've been given, man. Right? So, hey, all praises to the Most High, Bashmi Al-Shai, man. So we're gonna get straight into it, man. Can I eat halal food? The answer, the answer is no. Right? We're gonna put it straight up and down like that. But again, we will go through the precepts. Right? The answer is no, straight up and down. Doesn't matter because, oh yeah, they the way they cut it is cleaner and it's this and it's that and it's whatever. People like say, yeah, it's a cleaner way. Right? But how can it be clean if you're using the God, right? And again, we know powers, right? You're using the 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 gods of the nations. Let's put it like that. You're using these fake deities, and you're saying, look, in this guy's name, right? They say what they say, man, before they right, before they you know, kill the lamb or whatever they eat, man. They'll say, damn, for edification purpose, I'll say it. They say, oh, Allah Akbar, and then they'll, slaughter it in that name or whatever. That's what they'll do. So to eat that, they've essentially prayed over that in their, language and their custom, which is, I believe, is in Surah maybe 6 and I think 121. I think they, even as a Muslim, you know, how would you respond? I'll get into it. I'll get into that because that's a good question. How would you respond to someone if they said, "Stop being over righteous. I don't believe in Allah, and Allah is not real." Right? We'll see what the precepts say, and I'll because it's a good question. I even have my niece. My niece kind of asked me that. She's like, "Oh, can we eat halal foods?" And I was kind of confounded because she's like, she's in year 5, so it was like when she asked me that, I was like, "Whoa!" I was kind of taken back because it shows you that in these last days, hey, younger people are waking up and understanding. Okay, hold on. Can we actually eat this? But hey, we're gonna get into it, right? But it's the book of Revelation, chapter 2, and I'll start at verse number 19. It says, I know, right, and we'll start at verse 18 for a little bit of exaltation. It says, Revelation 2 and 18, and unto the angel of the church of Thyatira, write these things, saith the Son of Yahweh, who have his eyes like unto a flame of fire, and his feet are like fine brass. So again, right? Or this is not literal, right? I dare these reprobates that apologetics debate to deal with that, like fine brass, right? His feet are like fine brass. But we'll read on. Verse 19, I know thy works and charity and service and faith and thy patience and thy works, and the last to be more than the first. So the faith that you came into this truth with, the patience, the works, the charity, the service, it should be more than it was to start with. If you haven't upgraded yourself from when you first came into this truth, hey, that's madness, right? It needs to be more than the first, right? I'll read on verse 20. Notwithstanding, I have a few things against thee, because thou sufferest that woman Jezebel, which calleth herself a prophetess, to teach and to seduce my servants to commit fornication and to eat things sacrificed unto idols, right? So, and that's what you got to watch out for these demons in these last days, man. Find any way to catch you out, man. Right? That's why it's always good to inquire about, hey, where is this halal food? Right? I call up when I go out to eat with my rib. Yeah, I'll call up certain places. I ask them, yes, sir, sorry, is the food halal? And they'll get excited because they think that I'm wanting to eat the halal food. Little do they know that I do not want it, right? So, and you got to be careful, man, right? It says to seduce my servants to commit fornication. So the fornication here is the eating of things that are sacrificed unto idols, right? Um, Now, what would be an idol, right? What would be an idol? That's the thing, man. What would be an idol, man? Would an idol just be some random? Anything can be an idol, to be specific, to be honest. Right? Anything can be an idol, but more so specifically, right? An idol, right? And if someone could actually search the word for an idol, right? Because I think it might go into something like that's you could put up like the definition of the word idol, like IDOL, right? And just put it down in the chat, Lord willing. But right, the idol, right, is really going into some kind of strange god, man, right? Some kind of strange god, right? This is um Deuteronomy chapter 5 and verse 7. It says, "Thou shalt have none other gods before me." So you should be worshiping anything else but the Most High, right? Straight up and down. You worshiping anything else but the Most High, right? And that could be money, that could be a statue, that could be your woman, your husband, it could be whatever, right? Essentially, you can make anything an idol, man, right? Which is quite you know shows you how carnal people can be, right? But this is Deuteronomy chapter 31. So like Deuteronomy chapter 31 and 16. And the Lord said unto Moses, behold, thou shalt sleep with thy father. So this is going to the time of when Moses was, gonna fall asleep, right? It says, and this people will rise up and go a whoring after the gods of the strangers of the land, whither they go to be amongst them, and will forsake me and break my covenant which I have made with them. So it was prophesied. People are, well, why are your people doing this? It's because it was prophesied that we would go off. It was prophesied that we would go and commit whoredom, which is, again, that's just like literal fornication. You have a spiritual fornication where you leave your creator, right, and you go and follow after the gods of the nations, right? That's going a whoring. Just like in, biblically, a woman that goes man to man to man, hey, that's a whoredom, right? According to what the word of God says, right? So it says that they would go after the gods of the strangers, right? So the sister put it in the chat. She said, idol, a representation of a god used as an object, a person, right, or thing, right, that is greatly admired, loved, or revered, right? So that's the definition there, right? Idol, an image or representation of a god used as an object of worship, a person or thing that is greatly admired or loved or revered, right? So that's what you have as an idol, right? And there's so many more. There's so many more precepts, right? That go into Israel rebelling and following after the idols of the nations, man. Right? This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 20, and I'll start from verse number 17. It says, "But thou shalt utterly destroy them, namely the Hittites and the Ammonites, the Canaanites and the Perizzites, the Hivites and the Jebusites, as the Lord thy God have commanded thee, that they teach you not to do after all their abominations which they have done unto their gods. So should ye sin against the Lord your God." So you would destroy, the idols of the nations, so that you wouldn't go and, like it prophesied, and follow after their things, man, their idols. Because those gods that they worship, those are idols, man. Right. And even that, right. And Lord willing, as we get into that, another good example of like the food sacrificed unto idols, man, is what you read in Bel, right, in the story of Bel and the dragon, right? Lord willing, I'll get into that, because it tells you that they would put out food, right? They would put out food for, for Bel, right? They would put out food for Bel, and the people Well, essentially the people were the ones eating it, but they'd make it seem like their idols were eating it, right? So that's another example of how food is important. That's why when you eat your food, I pray over it. Oh no, pray after. I pray over your food, man. Right? Pray over your food. Right? This is Matthew 8, and I'll read verse 14. Right? Just on that point of just praying over your food. It's Matthew 8, and I think verse 14. It says, not Matthew 8 and 14. Might be Luke. Right? There's a point. Christ, he prayed over the food, man. Right? Christ prayed over the food. All right? See verse 8 and 14, maybe. Right, Lord, will not get it. Luke. All right. Lord will not find it, man. Because there's a good precept, and it was showing how, Christ, he prayed over the food, man. Right? Yeah, here we go. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 14 and verse number 16. Matthew 14 and 16. But Yahushua said unto them, they need not depart, give ye them to eat. And they say unto him, we have here but 5 loaves and 2 fishes. He said, bring them hither to me. And he commanded the multitude to sit down on the grass, and took the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, and looked up to heaven. And it says, and looking up to heaven, he blessed and brake and gave the loaves to his disciples, and the disciples to the multitude. And they did all eat and were filled, and they took up the fragments that remained, 12 baskets full. So he blessed it, man. Right? He blessed, right? He blessed and brake. So obviously, he prayed over that, man. And that's blessing the food, right? So, right, back to the point of the idols, man. Right, let's go to the book, right, of Psalms, right? The book of Psalms, right? And I do have some notes as well. Lord willing, I'll do my best to cover all of it, as well as the question that sister asked, right? It's the book of Psalms, chapter 90. The book of Psalms, chapter 96. 96, I'm going to start at verse 4. Right, it's the book of Psalms, chapter 96, and I'll start from verse 4. It says, for the Lord is great and greatly to be praised. He is to be feared above all gods, man. So the Most High, Yahweh Bashim Yoshai, he is to be feared above all the damn deities, man, that have been set up. And the Most High gave, each nation essentially their own deity, if you want to say that, man. Right? You have like Bel, you got the Bel and the dragon both. You have Dagon, which is mentioned in First Samuel 4, 5, I believe. Right? You had the who you got, man? You got Baal. You got these nations. They had their own deities, man. Right? And like because sister put some precepts in, at the start. Numbers 25, which tells you, Lord willing, I'll get to that, how, the Israelites, we fell to fornication by getting and eating these foods that were, essentially put up, by these, believe it's Ammon, right? I believe it's Ammonites, right? I believe it's Ammon in that. I believe in Numbers 25, because it is a precept in First Corinthians where it says that, they all sat down to eat, right? So, because eat and people don't understand that food is linked to covenant meals. So when you're eating food, essentially it's like making a covenant, right? But this is Psalms 96, and I'll read from verse 5. It says, for all the gods of the nations are idols, but the Lord made the heavens. So all the gods of the nations, they're idols. If it's not Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, hey, allow that. Leave it alone. Right? They're all idols. Right? So the Most High is to be feared above all of these demons, man. Right? And even I'll go to Psalms 95, right? So Psalms 95, and I'll read from verse number 3. It says, "For the Lord is a great power and a great king above all gods," man. Right? So the Most High is above these deities, man. Right? So essentially, when you come amongst, point is, when Israel comes amongst these gods, man, and they're gonna learn after the ways of the other nations, man, and the other heroes, and they're gonna sacrifice to their gods, to their deities. Right? Let's get the book of Psalms 106, man. Right? Because it tells you how, Israel, they were mingled amongst them and they learned their ways, man. Right? This is Psalms 106. Psalms 106. It's the book of Psalms 106 and verse number, I'll start from 34. It says, "They did not destroy the nations concerning whom the Lord commanded them." And we read that in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 31, I believe it was. And it's obviously further emphasized in Deuteronomy 7, right? But what the hell is that? You see that? Right? But anyway, so they didn't destroy the nations, as it says in Psalms 106 and verse 34. In verse 35 now. Yeah, see, I'm gonna jump back up in this verse. Right? This is Psalms 106 and verse 35. "But were mingled among the heathen and learned their works, and they served their idols, which were a snare unto them." Right? I'm gonna keep on going on. It says, "Yea, they sacrificed their sons and their daughters unto devils." See that? So the Israelites sacrificing their children to these deities, the Bible calls them devils, right? It says, verse 38, "And shed innocent blood, even the blood of their sons and of their daughters, whom they sacrificed unto the idols of Canaan, and the land was polluted with blood." You see that? So they commit, that's complete sin, right? Anyway, to sacrifice your child anyway. But I'm gonna jump back up in Psalms 106 and verse 28. It says, "They joined themselves unto Baal Peor and ate the sacrifices of the dead." So when you're eating, because remember, just as Israel, we had, right, we would give sacrifices. That's normal, right? The whole point of, when you read Leviticus, I believe it's 24, right? When you read Leviticus 24, or when I'll pull it, right, it tells you that, man, right? Food, the priest, he would eat, you know, uh, uh, um, uh, certain portions, right, of the sacrifices, man. Right, they were ate by the priest, man. Right, even when you read First Samuel 2, it tells you about the sons of Eli. They were taking the best bits, right, and they're supposed to be offered for a burnt offering, but they were eating those, right, saying, "Yeah, yeah, give me that." Right, that's off. Right, this is Leviticus 24, and I'll start from verse 5. It says, "And they," I'll start from verse 5 and I'm gonna jump down. Leviticus 24 and 5, "And thou shalt take fine flour and bake 12 cakes thereof. 2/10 deals shall be in one cake, and thou shalt set them in two rows, 6 on a row upon the pure table before the Lord." I'm gonna jump down. Um, it says in verse 9, "And it shall be Aaron and his sons, and they shall eat it in the holy place, for it is most holy unto him, of the offering of the Lord made by fire, by a perpetual statute." So the Israelites, right, in the ancient world, they were doing the thing. When you eat food, it goes back to uh, um, a sacrifice, a covenant meal. So when you read Genesis, right, I'll read Genesis 14 and verse number 18. "And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High God. And he blessed him and said, Blessed be Abraham of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth." So that point, that's going into a covenant meal, that eating, right? When you even read, and I get another one, and I kind of dive into the further precepts, man. Right? This is Exodus chapter 24. Right? Exodus chapter 24. Right? Because they ate. Right after the covenant was created. Right? They ate. Right? This is Exodus 24, and I'll read from verse 11. And upon the nobles of the children of Israel he laid not his hand. Also they saw Yahweh and did eat and drink. See that? So that, just like in a wedding, man, when you read Genesis 24, right? You read Tobit, I believe chapter 8, maybe, right? When you read Tobit 8, a meal is taking place, man, really to solidify and close that ordeal, right? There's many precepts on that you can read, right? Salakia, right? Just cementing that point. This is Matthew 8 and verse number 14. Not Matthew 8. Yeah, Matthew 8 and verse number 14. Not Matthew 8 and 14. Matthew 14 and 8. Right? I read Matthew 14 and 8. So like, right. Lord, would I not find it? But the Most High, right, through the Spirit, through Salakia, Yahweh Shai says to the apostles, man, about a meal that's gonna take place, man, right? Which is essentially going into that covenant meal, right? That's what people that say we're in the fullness of the new covenant, or we're in the new covenant, or we're not in the new covenant. No, we're not in the fullness of it, because that meal hasn't taken place, which solidifies that, right? So see, let me see if I can find it. Right, I'm gonna pull it, Lord. Right, but Lord willing, I'll see if I can find it. If not, then we're gonna have to just move on. All right, maybe 11. Yeah, this is it. It's the book of Matthew, chapter 8 and verse 11. It says, and I say unto you that many shall come from the east and west and shall sit down with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. Right, so that's that. You're gonna have that meal, man. Right, that covenant meal to seal the deal. Right, that's what that's really going into. Right, and it's further emphasized in the other gospels, I believe. Right, but nonetheless. So we understand that an idol is going into another deity, right? Like it's something that's an image or representation of a god used as an object, right? So that could be anywhere from anything that's not the Most High, right? For Shimi Hawashai, that's an idol, right? Mecca, right? These Buddhist statues and all these mad things that people, they put up, man. That's just off, right? That's completely off, man. Right? And we have to be circumspect again about knowing this, man, right? And having discernment about where you eat your food from, man. But nonetheless, right, let's touch on it, man, because even on this point here, you have a lot of people, they say, Paul, he went off and he was wrong, and Paul was he said this. Well, really, you have, but this is Second Peter chapter 3 and verse number, I'll start at verse 15. It says, and the account that the long suffering of the Lord is salvation, even as our beloved brother Paul, also according to the wisdom given unto him, have written unto you. And Paul wasn't some illiterate guy. Paul was very learned, right? When you read 1 Corinthians 9, it tells you that he was able to speak to those that are without the law, those that are with the law, right? He was able to speak to the Greeks. Paul was smart, man. He wasn't some dunce. Just like Daniel. Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. They weren't some just fools, man. They were learned, skilled men, right? In whom there was no blemish. That's Daniel 1, verse 3 to 4. Right? Learned in the sciences. They were smart people, man. right? See, that's why I struggle to read Paul's letters, and it's all right, but it's about actually wanting to learn and understand, right? Because Paul, hey man, Paul was, I've just about coming to grips with understanding some of the things that Paul's even saying myself, right? Reading on verse 16, it says, as also in all his epistles, speaking in them of these things, in which are some things hard to be understood, which they that are unlearned and unstable rest, as they do also the other scriptures, unto their own destruction. So people will get Paul's writings completely mixed up, misunderstand what Paul is saying. I think Paul is talking to heathens, and despite the fact that, and that's why you can't make the scriptures contradict. The scriptures don't cut the scripture. That's John 10 and believe 35. There's no, oh yeah, Paul is saying this, and he's teaching something different from what Christ said. Right? Paul, see, yeah, man. Some people, I don't know if they intentionally do that, and they say, yeah, Paul was off, and they just teaching, trying to be different. Right? They just want to be different, right? It's the book of Acts, chapter 22, and I'll start at verse 3. It says, I am verily a man, which am a Jew, born in Tarsus, a city in Cilicia, yet brought up in this city at the feet of Gamaliel, and taught according to the perfect manner of the law of the fathers, and was zealous towards Yahweh, as ye are all this day. So Paul wasn't some idiot, man, when it came to the law. Or Paul saying now we can eat this, but Paul said, hey, we established the law. But now for some reason, some guy on his YouTube account is saying, yeah, Paul said we can do this and we can do that. Paul really says that we can actually eat whatever we want to eat. Is Paul saying that? No, that's what you are saying, because you evidently don't understand what Paul is actually trying to say, right? Let's put it like that. So he said he's zealous, right? He's taught according to the perfect manner of the law, right? So Paul, put some respect on Paul's name, man, right? Right, even better, man. What did Paul say himself, man? Right? Paul let you know himself, that whole setup there, man. Right, regarding you know, right. This is Philippians chapter 3, verse 4. It says, though I might also have confidence in the flesh, if any other man thinketh that he have whereof he might trust in the flesh, I more. So Paul is saying, yo, the guy that's talking about, he's this person and he's that. Hey, Paul is saying, yo, he's basically talking his talk, right? I can do it more than him, right? It says, Philippians 3 and verse 5, circumcised the 8th day, right, of the stock of Israel, of the tribe of Benjamin, and Hebrew of the Hebrews, as touching the law, a Pharisee, concerning zeal, persecuting the church, touching the righteousness which is in the law, blameless, right? Paul, he's talking his talk, man. Yeah, I'm that guy. These guys that are saying, yeah, I'm really that guy. That's what Paul is saying. So anyone that's saying, oh yeah, Paul was talking, he's teaching to break the law, hey, that's bearing false witness, man. That's really bearing false witness, because firstly, right, when you go to the accounts, right, in Acts 21, right, I believe you got Acts 21 and you got Acts 15. Read it in context, firstly, right, and we can go to Acts 9, and we're going to show you how that Paul was selected by the Lord, right? Paul in Acts 9, I believe it is, he was chosen. I believe it was no, I don't want to say Caiaphas, right? Let me get that first before we go there, because then this just lines up everything else, right? This is Acts chapter 9, and I'll start from verse number, that's Ananias, right? It's Acts 9 and 10. And there was a certain disciple at Damascus, right, which is I believe in the area of like Syria, named Ananias, and to him said the Lord in a vision, Ananias, and he said, behold, I am here, Lord. That's Yahushai. And the Lord said unto him, arise and go into the street which is called Straight, and inquire in the house of Judas for one called Saul of Tarsus, for behold, he prayeth. So see that? So that's the same Acts 22 and verse 3, Paul of Tarsus, right? Or Saul, right? Because Saul, his name was changed. And Saul is, I've seen someone say this, Saul is, Paul is Saul of the Old Testament, which is madness, right? That's just complete madness. But uh, um, even what the precept, the sister put in Acts 21, right? And 24, and that's literally what I'm going to go to. Because when you read that account, it's going to tell you that Paul never said what they said. They just said, yo, look, here you go. This guy's teaching people to not keep the commandments. But you've already broken the commandments if you haven't sacrificed on the 8th day. But, you know, just keep the Bible in the context, man. Right? But going back to Acts 9 and verse number 11, well, verse 12, and have seen in a vision a man called, it's like a man named Ananias coming in and putting his hand on him that he might receive his sight. Then Ananias answered, Lord, I have heard by many of this man how much evil he have done to thy saints at Jerusalem, right? Because he persecuted the church, right? That's the Israelites, which are the church, right? That's another precept that shows you that the Israelites are the church, because Paul said he persecuted the church. And Ananias is saying that those saints at Jerusalem that were persecuted, right? That's talking about Israel. Acts 9 and 14. And here he have authority. See that? Listen to this. And here he have authority from the chief priest to bind all that call on thy name. But the Lord said unto him, go thy way, for he is a chosen vessel unto me to bear my name before the Gentiles and kings and the children of Israel. So if Paul is off, essentially, anyone that's saying Paul is off for what he's teaching, they're saying that Yahweh Bashim Yahushai is wrong. Because Yahushai is saying that Paul is a chosen vessel. So by default, you saying that Paul is off, you're saying Yahushai. It's madness when you think about it. You're saying Yahushai is off, therefore saying that the Most High is off. So you just got to repent. Anyone teaching that Paul taught this, right, you're completely lying, right? Because, and it just a juxtaposition of that understanding, right? We're going to go to Romans chapter 9. So it says that he's a chosen vessel, right? And then with regards to the vessels, who are the vessels that are not chosen, right? Or the vessels that are fitted for destruction that now people are saying can be saved. It's the book of Romans chapter 9, and I'll start from verse number Romans 9. I'll start at verse 22. I'll start at verse 21. Have the potter not power over the clay of the same lump to make one vessel unto honor, Slakia, and another unto dishonor? So obviously Yahweh Bashim Yashai being the potter, because he has power over the clay, meaning he creates and fashions man, and he makes people have this whatever. He's the potter, right? So, but then there's two, the vessel unto honor and the vessel unto dishonor. This is Romans 9 and 22. What if Yahweh, willing to show his wrath and to make his power known, endured with much long suffering the vessels of wrath fitted to destruction? So there's vessels of wrath fitted to destruction. Paul, he's been called a chosen vessel. So he isn't one of those vessels fitted to destruction. So saying that Paul is off, you're a reprobate. Right? This is the book of Acts. Right? We go to Acts. Right, we try and keep it in chronology. Right? This is the book of Acts, chapter 15 and verse number 19. Right? Right, this is Acts chapter 15. Right, and this is going into James. Right, this is Acts 15, and I'll start at verse 13. It says, I'll start even at 10. It says, now, therefore, why tempt ye Yahweh to put a yoke upon the neck of the disciples, which Salakia. This is Acts 15 and 10. Now, therefore, why tempt ye Yahweh to put a yoke upon the neck of the disciples, which neither our forefathers nor we were able to bear? Because hey, you would die for them sins that you committed, man. The sins you might have committed: adultery, fornication, broke the Sabbath, and you would have died. So, Christ coming, when you read Matthew 1, 27, or John 1 and 27, or John 1 and 17. I think it's John 1 and 17. And you would have Christ has got that grace and mercy for us. Told the woman, go and sin no more. We have the ability to repent and get right. Right? So it says, verse 11, but we believe that through the grace of the Lord, Yahushua Mashiach, we shall be saved even as they. Right? So there we go. That's that grace and mercy. Verse 12. Then all the multitude kept silence and gave audience to Barnabas and Paul, declaring what miracles and wonders Yahweh had wrought among the Gentiles by them. So this is a council as well, right? They ain't saying, look, right? Paul and Barnabas, and they were doing miracles, right? Verse 13. And after they had held their peace, James answered, saying, men and brethren, hearken unto me. Because James, I believe he was one of the heads in the church at Jerusalem, right? He was one of the heads at Jerusalem, right? And this is what he said. This is verse 19, right? Wherefore my sentence is that we troubled not them which from among the Gentiles are turned to Yahweh. So those Israelites that come and repent, they come back into the understanding, just like us in these last days, right? There's essentially like a starter pack, man, right? Because you ain't gonna break down Purim, man. Oh yeah, what's Purim? You break it down to someone that they just oh, I'm with the Israelites. Oh, okay. You're gonna break down to them of Purim, right? Unless they ask, right? Because obviously, like it says, they gotta be persuaded to keep these days, right? Convicted. Yeah. Oh yeah. What's this? What's that? You might give them the breakdown, man. The Sabbath day, fringes, no pork, crab, ship, lobster. Shaving your beard, right? Or maybe wearing a dress, man. Certain things of such nature. You're gonna give them these breakdowns, man. But reading on, it says, verse 20, but that we write unto them that they abstain from pollutions of idols and from fornication and from things strangled and from blood. So pollutions of idols, right? The pollutions of idols, even fornication, that all touches in to eating them certain foods, man. Right? So I'm gonna jump down to verse 22. Then pleased it the apostles and elders with the whole church to send chosen men. Again, that chosen men, just like Paul, the chosen vessel, right? Mentioned in Acts 9. To send chosen men of their own company to Antioch with Paul and Barnabas, namely Judas, surnamed Barsabas, and Silas, chief men among the brethren. So Paul is mentioned in there, right? Paul, this is not, he didn't say this himself. Oh, Paul said it himself. No, right? This is the apostles and the elders with the whole church. They were pleased to send these people out, right? So I'll read down verse 23, and wrote letters by them after this manner, the apostles and elders and brethren, saying greeting unto the brethren which are of the Gentiles in Antioch and Syria and Cilicia. I read on, for as much as we have heard that certain which went out from us have troubled you with words, subverting your souls, saying you must be circumcised and keep the law, to whom we gave no such commandment. Because once you've missed the 8th day, that's it. That's simply it. There's no undoing it. I try to, that's done. The 8th day, once you miss the 8th day, that you've broken that commandment, right? Reading verse, and that's the grace and mercy, obviously, that was brought upon the Israelites, in the time after Christ's resurrection, the grace and mercy of, the true circumcision, Deuteronomy 10 and 16, being the circumcision of your heart. And this is after, obviously, the 8th day, right? But this is Acts 15 and verse 25. It seemed good unto us, being assembled with one accord, to send chosen men unto you with our, so again, that chosen men unto you with our beloved Barnabas and Paul, men that have hazarded their lives for the name of our Lord Yahushua Mashiach. We have sent therefore Judas and Silas, who shall tell you the same things by mouth. For it seemed good to the Holy Spirit and to us to lay upon you no greater burden than these necessary things. Right? So let's see those things. That ye abstain from meats offered to idols, and from blood, and from things strangled, and from fornication, from if Salakia, from which if you keep well, if ye keep yourselves, ye shall do well, fare ye well. So these are the things that they told him. Look, and Paul was amongst those men, right? When you read verse 22, that the elders and the apostles, hey, they agree, yeah, that's fine, yeah, these guys, they're certified. So now I start lining up the precepts. Did Paul really say that? Right? Because we're gonna jump to Acts 21, right? Because again, Paul kept the law. Paul was taught in the perfect manner of the law, right? So, and that food sacrificing to idols, that's any of those deities, man, right? Someone says, yeah, this is halal food, right? This is some Buddha stuff, right? This is some damn Asmodeus meal, the Asmodeus special, right? The Apollyon firecracker chicken, right? The damn, I don't know, the Zoroastrian zinger sandwich, right? The Brahma beef bockwurst sandwich, right? You know, someone says that, yeah, this is the damn Brahma beef burger, kind of the Brahma beef. But you kind of search up who is Brahma, you might find out, hey, that's some damn Hindu deity, man, with 7,000 arms, right? Just like, you know, with certain, you know, with ease, man, they'll get this hair that's been offered up to these temples, man, and put it on their head, man, and then they wonder why they got all these spirits, right? So if someone says that, hey, look, this is this is the Allah sandwich, right? Or even just this is halal, right? Don't eat it because it's food sacrificed to idols. Thus saith the Bible, right? But cool. This is Acts chapter 21, and I'll start from verse number Acts 21, and I'll start from verse 21. Acts 21 and 21. I'll start from 18 and I'll jump down to 21. And the day, so it's Acts 21 and 18. And the day following, Paul went with us unto James, and all the elders were present. And when I'll read down anyway. And when he had saluted them, he declared particularly what things Yahweh had wrought among the Gentiles by his ministry. And when they had heard it, they glorified the Lord and said unto him, Thou seest, brother, how many thousands of Jews there are which believe, and they are all zealous of the law. And they are informed of thee, that thou teachest all Jews which are among the Gentiles to forsake Moses, saying that they ought not to circumcise their children, neither to walk after the customs. Right? The bit where did Paul say that though? Where did Paul say that? Don't circumcise the children. Did Paul say, oh, don't do it? Paul didn't say don't keep the commandments. Where did Paul say that? Right? Paul's brought up in the perfect manner of the law. Of course, he's going to tell you to, if your child is not past the 8th day, circumcise your child. You're supposed to. Right? If you don't, obviously, hey, that would be a sin, you know? Right? Reading on. It said, verse 22, what is it therefore? The multitude must needs come together, for they will hear that thou art come. Do therefore this that we say to thee. We have 4 men which have a vow on them. So that's that number 6, right? The Nazarite vow. Them take and purify ourselves with them. Right? I'm going to jump down to in verse Acts 15 and 24. But that thou thyself also walkest orderly and keepest the law. So he's saying, look, you know, show that you keep the law, basically. Right? Verse 25, as touching the Gentiles which believe, we have written and concluded that they observe no such thing, save only that they keep themselves from things offered to idols, and from blood, and from strangled, and from fornication. Right? And when you read it, Paul actually took the men, They accomplished their days, arrived at purification, and that was that. But when you jump to verse 27 now, and when the 7 days were almost ended, the Jews which were of Asia, when they saw him in the temple, stirred up the people and laid hands on him. So they were just scoffers, man. It's like you tell someone, you gotta keep someone just coming to the truth. A brother said, yeah, you didn't teach him to keep the holy days. You're off, right? And they gang up around you, say, yeah, this guy is teaching people not to keep the holy days. This brother just coming to the truth. You tell this brother about feast dedications. You're gonna be there for camp's gonna be 5 hours dealt with one person, right? Sometimes it be like that, but the brother might not have that's what you've given him, right? But they're saying, yeah, this guy, he's off, man. But that's Paul. It doesn't say Paul said that, right? But reading on, Acts 15 and 28, crying out, men of Israel, help. This is the man that teacheth all men everywhere against the people and the law and this place, and further brought Greeks into the temple and have polluted this holy place. You see that? You see that? So, and again, the Greeks that are speaking of is Israelites, right? You can read John 12, right? John 12, I believe it's John 12, it tells you about the Jews or Greeks that came up to worship, right, to the temple, and they wanted to see Christ, right? This is, I'll read verse 29. For they had seen before with him in the city Trophimus, an Ephesian, whom they supposed that Paul had brought into the temple. You see that? So they were scoffers, man, basically. They were basically scoffers, right? Making it seem like Paul said, okay, don't, Paul said, where did Paul say go and eat food sacrificed unto idols? Right? Did Paul say that? Right? Paul tells you in 1 Corinthians, he tells you, flee fornication. Right? This is 1 Corinthians chapter 10, and I believe verse 14. It says, wherefore, even 1 Corinthians 6 and 9. Right? This is 1 Corinthians 10 and verse 14. Wherefore, my dearly beloved, flee from idolatry. Simple as, man. Paul was saying the same thing, reiterating. This is 1 Corinthians 6 and 9. Know ye not that the unrighteous shall not inherit the kingdom of God? Be not deceived, neither fornicators, nor idolaters. Right? Straight up and down. So Paul is telling you again here, hey man, flee idolatry. Right? Flee idolatry. Right? So let's go into now. I'm going to 1 Timothy. Right, I'm gonna go to 1 Timothy, right? And we're still gonna go back to we're gonna go back to 1 Corinthians. And this is 1 Corinthians. See that? This is 1 Timothy chapter 4, sorry. Right, 1 Timothy 4, and I'll start at verse number 4. See that? It's 1 Timothy 4 and verse number 4, right? It says, 1 Timothy 4 and verse 4, it says, for every creature of Yahweh is good and nothing to be refused if it be received with thanksgiving, for it is sanctified by the word of Yahweh and prayer. Can you sanctify something that the Most High has deemed unclean? Can you say, okay, right, like these Christians, man, and they babble and they say, rabba-da-da-da-da, and they're saying some duck language, man. Right? If you've seen that video with Brother Benaiah, man, where he goes to the church, this guy kind of starts trying to find a precept, and he starts kind of doing this. He says, he's saying, can they hear my speaking of tongues? Right? That's what he would. He's saying all this madness, trying to think they prayed over the food. If something is unclean, you can't make it, oh, now it's clean now because I prayed over it. It does not work like that, right? So the things that are, because pork, how can pork, which is part of really the abomination of desolation, now be eaten with thanksgiving if that was used to defile the temple? The precepts are not adding up, right? The understanding are not adding up, right? And that the brother said, no Israelites cannot eat halal food. They pray to their yeah, exactly. That's witchcraft. They pray over it, and then you're eating that damn like these KFCs, man. Right? These KFCs, right? Especially in the UK, right? But again, hey, check, man. Call these places up. Find out if it's not or it is, right? But I was saying a point, right? This is the book of Job, chapter 14, right? It's Job chapter 14, and I'll start from verse number 4, right? It's Job 14 and 4. It says, who can bring a clean thing out of an unclean? Not one. So if something's unclean, hey, then it's unclean. Oh, it doesn't matter. Oh, later on, I prayed over it, and in Jesus' name, you're not even using the right name, right? Oh, God knows my heart. Well, you need to know who you're praying to. Knowing the name of the Most High, right, and His Son is important, right? You just pray, oh, Jesus' name, in Jesus' name. You can't pray over pork and think the Most High is going to clean that, and then you're going to eat that, right? So nothing that's unclean can just be made unclean. Just like if your rib, you know, on a feast day, maybe she's cooking, she can't cook on the feast day, man. She can't, because that would be, that's unclean. She'd be unclean if she's on her flour. She'd be unclean, right? And then you're gonna, hey, well, hey, shalom, kings, right? Right, my rib made this. She's unclean though, and that's unclean food. Clean and unclean, right? He separated the clean from the unclean. You read Leviticus 7, right? Leviticus 11, so like, yeah, Deuteronomy 14. It tells you about those foods, man. But this is um Sirach chapter 30. Let's look at Sirach chapter. Um, Book of Sirach chapter 30. I think it's 33. I want. Right, it's Sirach chapter 33, and I'll start from Sirach 33 and verse I'll start from 14. It says, good is set against evil, life against death, so is the godly against the sinner, and the sinner against the godly. So look upon all the works of the Most High, there are two and two, one against another. Right? So the Most High separated the foods, man. There's foods that are to be eaten, and there's foods that are not to be eaten. It's very simple, man. Anyone saying anything else is actually going off, right? Simply put. Anyone saying, yeah, you can eat this, you can eat that, that's fine. It's not really, it's not halal. I don't, and if they know it's halal, and they're telling you, I don't believe in halal, just eat it. That's still off, because you know it's halal. Yeah, I bought that from the halal butchers. Yeah, this is halal. You eating that halal food, hey, that's off, right? So, um, right, let me get the notes, right? And the context as well, even when you go into that first, in the time of Corinth, you have to look up the maps. Look up the maps of how Corinth was. Because essentially, right, we'll get to that precept as well. Essentially, when you look at Corinth, you would have had the markets, which are the shambles. Next to the markets, you would have had let's say you have the market here, right? The market, the shambles, the fishes, and the chicken, and what? God knows what, right? The shambles here. You might have had the temple of Apollo here, right? The temple of Aphrodite down here somewhere, and round about these areas, right? And when you look at the map of Corinth and what was going on, it will give you the context to why Paul is saying what he's saying, right? Let's go to, I think, First Corinthians, right? I got to put up some of my notes, right? Right, First Corinthians, right? Chapter. I start First Corinthians. I'll start from verse. See that? I start First Corinthians chapter 10, and I'll start from verse number. See, First Corinthians 10 is a good breakdown into explaining it. Right, it's First Corinthians 10 because it kind of juxtaposes. Right, it's like a juxtaposition between, when the Israelites ate the food that the Most High gave them, and then when they ate the food that was folly. Right, this is First Corinthians 10, and I'll start from verse 3. And did all eat the same spiritual meat, and did all drink the same spiritual drink, for they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Hamashiach. So, when they ate the manna, right? When you read Numbers, I believe it's 20, I think it is, where Moses tapped the rock and the water came out, right? It says verse 5, but with many of them Yahweh was not well pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now these things were our examples to the intent that we should not lust after evil things as they also lusted. So that's the halal meats, man. Right? And go, don't, oh, well, it's too far. And hey, I've driven maybe what, 25 minutes. Yeah, I think maybe no more than 25 minutes, right? 25 minutes there, 25 minutes back, just to get food. That's not halal. Because at work, there's not a lot. There's not a lot of options. But I've driven there and back. Right, it'll be like 15 minutes. I ate in the car. I ate food, man. But it wasn't halal. So, you're saying, oh, well, right? Let me get a quick precept on that. Right? Let me get a quick precept on that. Right? Can't say, oh, well, I don't want to do it. Making excuses, man. Right? Making excuses. Right? This is the book of Proverbs. Right? It's the book of Proverbs chapter 6, and I'll start at verse number 6. It says, go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her be wise, which having no guide, overseer, or ruler, provideth her meat in the summer and gathereth her food in the harvest. So you can't say, oh, well, it's so far. Hey, well, that's what, make your own food, man. Stop buying food from these damn chicken and chip shops, man. Those that are in the UK, right? These damn halal chicken shops, man. Buy your own food. It's obviously healthy to buy your own food. It's obviously healthier. You make it. They use some next oil in the back that they haven't changed in 6 years. And it's even incomplete. Right? 6 years. They just dip in it and say, yes, brother, here you go. And you just, thank you, boss man. Thank you, boss man. Hey, so eating these halal foods, man. Right? So don't be a sluggard. I'm not gonna go and I don't wanna go and eat that. I don't wanna go, it's too far. But then you're gonna go to, or you can just buy a sandwich. Right? Just make your own food. Right? So it says that, in First Corinthians 10 and 6, that they lusted after evil things. The lusting after evil things, right? They were eating folly, man. They committed spiritual fornication, right? This is the book of First Corinthians 10 and 7. Neither be ye idolaters, as were some of them, as it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. So they sat down and said, yeah, let's do this, right? Right? Even when you read Exodus 32, right? They were eating folly, man. Right? Because remember, Aaron, he built the calf, and they had a meal. So when you eat certain foods, like it says in First Corinthians, right? You can't eat or drink of the table of the Lord and of devils. Right? It says this is not First Corinthians, this is Exodus chapter 32, and I'll start from verse number 5. And when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it, and Aaron made and Aaron made proclamation and said, tomorrow is a feast to the Lord. So he's trying to say, hey, this is to the Lord, but that's to the damn calf. Right? It says verse 6, And they rose up early on the morrow and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings, and the people sat down to eat and to drink and rose up to play. You see that? You see that? So they sitting down, they're eating Baal burgers, man. Baal burgers, right? That's a new one. Now people are eating Baal burgers, right? This is the Baal special, right? Sacrifice to Baal. That's what they were doing, man. When they rose, it says that they sat down to eat and to drink, man. Right? I'll be back to First Corinthians 10 and 8. Neither let us commit fornication, as some of them committed, and fell in one day 23,000. See that? And then that's even the other, like the precept the sister put in the book of Numbers, where they went after either Ammon or Moab and their idols, man. Right? This is Numbers chapter 25, and I'll start from verse 1. And Israel abode in Shittim, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab, and they called the people unto the sacrifices of their gods. And the people did eat and bow down to their gods. And Israel joined himself unto Baal Peor, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against them. You see that? So they sat down to eat of their gods. Hey, that's fornication. Just like, Israelites, hey, in the ancient world, our forefathers, they would have been doing that, man. We read in Leviticus 24, they would have had the bread and these certain sacrifices, and they'd be done, man. Right? And they would eat that, right? Only the Levites, which specifically the sons of Aaron, could eat that because they were holy. They're called to do that. And you read number 17, right, as well. Right? But them eating of those foods in number 25, hey, that's idolatry. Right? That's fornication. That's spiritual fornication. Right? Going from man to man. Just like you're going from idol to idol. Right? You read Jeremiah 3 and 1, it tells you. Right? The Most High says, though, we've done that, we come back unto it. But, in the case where, a woman, she's committed adultery, she slept with another man, should that man that she, was her previous husband now go and take her back? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Right? This is, I'm going to go back to my notes, right? So, and just a quick point on Corinth, right? When you read Corinth, because when you read through the different letters of Paul, it's always good to get an understanding of the context of what was going on, right? We know in First Corinthians, it tells you, or in the book of Corinthians, or the church at Corinth, there were sons that were taking their father's wives, right? Food sacrificed unto idols, um, the issue with the head coverings. So there's always context to why Paul is saying what he's saying when you read throughout his letters, man. Right? So in Corinth, they had temples which were dedicated to Apollo, Aphrodite, and Eshehepsos, right? And the meat, came essentially the meat, because they would do sacrifices. The meat came from temples where the meat was sacrificed unto idols, and the meat, those priests that they had of their their idols that they would have, they would sell those meat to the shambles, right? That's that's essentially the context behind it. They would sell those meat to the shambles, right? So let's go to and this is love, essentially telling someone, look, you've got to stop doing that. This is love, right? But let's go to First Corinthians. Should I stay in 10? Because it's still in 10, right? Still in 10 as it is, right? Let's go to First Corinthians chapter 10, and we'll go to verse 18. Right, this is First Corinthians chapter 10, because essentially, again, like I mentioned, I'll start from verse 16. When we eat foods that are unto whatever, that are not in the name of the Most High, we are being joined onto that idol, right? Like when you eat the Passover, right? The Passover essentially, that's like it says in Luke 22, eat this bread, eat the wine. You know what I'm saying? That's a covenant that we're making with the Most High, man. Bashim Yahushai. So just like when you go and you eat these other foods, you're making a covenant with them idols, man. Now this is First Corinthians chapter 10, and I'll start at verse 1 Corinthians 10 and 15. I speak as to wise men, judge ye what I say. The cup of blessing which we bless is it not the communion of the blood of Hamashiach? The bread which we break, is it not the communion of the body of Hamashiach? Just like I was saying, that's a communion. When you have a communion, you're kind of Samuel. He was kind of given like not a literal sacrifice, but he was given and a vow was made, by his mother Hannah, I believe, that he would be in the temple, man. And he was about it. He was doing his thing. When we eat of that communion, we're essentially joining ourselves unto the Most High. It says, for we, being many, are one bread and one body, for we are all partakers of that one bread. Behold, Israel after the flesh are not they which eat of the sacrifices partakers of the altar. So when you're eating of that food, you're taking part in that, God knows what altar that is, man. These wicked altars, man, these demonic things that are going on in the world, right? Let me see as well, because I've got notes as well, right? So in verse 8, it says, eating of the sacrifices of a god, right? You are worshiping that idol or that god when you eat of that sacrifice, right? I read on verse 19. What say I then, that the idol is anything, or that which is offered in sacrifice to idols is anything, right? Let me see. I'll jump down. We've still got quite a few points on that, right? Where is it? Right, but nonetheless, I'll stay there. Right, I'll read it again. Right, First Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 18. I said 19, so like, yeah. Right, because again, don't get confounded, and I might have to quickly jump off and then go on to Bible Hub and then come back, right? But essentially, yeah, I'm gonna do that. Give me 2 seconds. Watch this. All right, can't. All praise to the Most High. So even when you read that in the Greek, First Corinthians 10 and verse number 19 and 20, right? We'll read it. It says, what say I then, that the idol is anything, or that which is offered in sacrifice to idols is anything, right? But I say that the thing, that doesn't mean saying, no, it's not, it doesn't mean anything, right? Because we know that there's God's many, right? But there's one, First Corinthians 8 tells you that. Though there be God's many, there's one Lord, right? Because the nations, they have their gods. They follow those other, whatever they follow, man. But there's one power, Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, right? So it says, First Corinthians 10 and 20, but I say that the thing which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils and not to Yahweh. And I would not that ye should have fellowship with devils. So don't be, essentially, someone say, oh, maybe it's nothing, right? It's not, okay. It doesn't mean anything. Oh, this is nothing. This is not an idol. No. Paul said that the Gentiles, I'll read it again, 1 Corinthians 10 and 20, but I say that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils, right? And not to Yahweh. They're not saying, all praises to Yahweh, Bashim Yahushai. I pray you cover this land with the blood of Yahushai. All praise to the Most High. They're not saying that. They're calling upon some backdoor demon, man. Some kind of backdoor demon, right? Damn, a brother, you know, he was in the truth. He was saying that he went on like a school trip, right? And he was a teacher, and he went into like one of these temples, man. These, I think it was maybe a Hindu temple, and he said they would open up the doors and they would put mangoes, right? They put mangoes in these doors, man, and then shut the doors, right? Do you think that's offered up in? You would be a complete fool to say, hold on, that mango looks good, and you'd pick up the mango and you might die instantly, man, right? But point being is those things that they sacrificed unto devils. They're not sacrificed unto the Most High. This is not our name, because they just, and that's why it's good to know the name of the Most High. If you don't know the name of the Most High, and you're saying, "Oh, thank God." We in the truth, we know what we're talking about. Anyone else? Oh yeah, you Christian, you know, your friend, maybe yeah. This is in the name of God. In the name of God. Which one, man? Right? Reading on, verse 21. Ye cannot drink of the cup of the Lord and the cup of devils. Ye cannot be partakers of the Lord's table and the table of devils. So you gotta pick. You gotta eat halal food. Are you? And you can go to the kosher, man. Right? Go to the kosher. Right? You can eat kosher. Right? You can eat kosher food. Right? Because kosher isn't they don't pray over it like say, you know, how the Muslims do it, right? Kosher is based upon the foods that are clean and unclean in Leviticus 11, Deuteronomy 14. And even to point out, things like fish cannot be it's not sacrificed, because they don't cut like the neck open and let it bleed out like they would a lamb or a chicken or a goat, beef or whatever. They didn't do it like that. So when you see something that's like, it says halal and it's fish, that wouldn't actually be sacrificed in the name of an idol, right? And that's specifically talking about halal foods in this case, right? Even something as far as like you know, because you have certain shops that are obviously they're run by Ishmaelites, right? And it might have the halal sign on it. If they're selling like meat or whatever, then it's probably that. Well, they have like their restrictions and whatnot. They have to have certifications to be selling this and whatever. And it's halal, right? They'll have a sticker on the front, and you know that symbol, whatever that symbol is, right? That means it's halal. The chicken or whatever they got there, that's halal. But let's say they sell milkshakes. Like me, hey, Sarah, 5 and 15, man. I'm gonna ask them, can I see your milk? Can I see your milk? Because for the milk to essentially be halal as they understand it, like it's sacrificed literally, that milk would have to have that halal stampage. But when I went into like a what is it, man? It's called like a dessert shop. That there's no milk here, right? I haven't seen it. I'm yet to see it. That says, yeah, this is halal certified. This is from like an animal. They slaughtered it and it's halal certified. I haven't seen it. What they will do is that they will say that because the animal is a clean animal, they will say, that by default, they'll say that's halal. That's what Muslims will actually do. But again, always good to search up where you're eating. Is it halal? Is this milk halal? Right? You never know, right? I've never seen about no halal milk, but it's always good to double check, right? So cool, right? What else have we got? Right. So let's see in terms of the sister's question. So we asked the sister's question. The sister said, how would you respond to someone if they said, stop being over righteous, I don't believe in Allah and Allah is not real? Right? So this is like it says in Revelation 2 in verse 20, or I believe it was, about the seducing spirits, man. Right? You gotta watch out for some seducing spirits, man. I ask, is this halal? Is this halal? I ask. Be afraid. Like it says in Job 2 and verse 9, man. Do you yet still retain your integrity? Yes. Retain your integrity, man. Right? It's the book of um it's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 13, of verse 5. I'll start from 6. And if thy it says, if thy brother, the son of thy mother, or the son, or thy son, or thy daughter, or thy wife, or the wife of thy bosom, or thy friend, which as thine own soul entice thee secretly, saying, let us go and serve other gods, which thou hast not known, thou nor thy fathers, namely of the gods of the people which are round about you, nigh unto you and far off from thee, from the one end of the earth even unto the other, thou shalt not consent unto him, nor hearken unto him, neither shalt thou eye pity him, neither shalt thou uh, spare, neither shalt thou conceal him. So if someone's saying, okay, well, it's halal and I don't believe in, it's still halal, right? And the point is, they know it's halal. The fact is that they know it's halal. You know something's halal, right? And that's why me, hey, sorry, 5 and 15, always check. I don't care. Okay, somebody said, my mom, kind of tell my mom, look, I'm not eating that halal thing, man. I'm not eating that. All right. She's like, no, it's not halal. But me, I'd rather buy my own food and cook my own food, right? Because mums, man, right? Mums and dads they kind of just buy whatever and they just, you know what I'm saying? But kind of enforce that anyway. Like, look, I don't really eat the halal thing, right? And I kind of explained, I broke it down to her. No, Lord, when she takes heed, man. But if someone's saying stop being over righteous, they don't believe in Allah. It's not whether they don't believe in Allah or not. It's the fact that that food has already been sacrificed onto idols. You know, that's what would make it off in it. You know, right? So, Lord willing, if you're still on the call, Sister Karma, that makes sense, right? I think I still got a few more precepts as well. Right? I think I still got a few more precepts, man. Right? Because again, as well, it's about, you don't want to cause your you know, cause your neighbor. You don't want to sin in your consciousness as well. The Lord will not go into that. Right? But yeah, so the Quranic verse that tells you about how Muslims, they have to eat, that is Surah 6 and 121. So a Muslim, and that's the integrity we have to have in this truth. The Muslims, they will eat their thing. It has to be allowed. But us Israelites, okay, we're just eating. That's off. We're being joined onto their God's tabernacle, man. Right? And we don't believe in that. Right? And let me get a precept. This is Galatians 5 and 13. That's the book of Galatians, chapter 5 and verse 13. It says, for brethren, ye have been called unto liberty, only use not liberty for an occasion to the flesh, but by love serve one another. So by liberty, it's not allowing an occasion to just go eat halal foods, man. Right? If you didn't know, I didn't know. Hey, I was eating halal food, man. Right? Chomping it down. Right? But then I was like, kind of was scratching my head a bit after, man. Kind of confounded. Didn't really understand it. Once you understand it, hey, you got to code it down, man. For the Most High Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. Right? And I got 8%. Right? So, right? Right, Lord willing, that makes sense, Sister Carmel, I hope. Right, so let's touch on that point the sister said, right? This is 1 Corinthians 10, and we'll jump to verse 23. It says, all things are lawful for me, but all things are not expedient. All things are lawful for me, but all things edify not. Right? And do I have any points on that? I definitely should have some points on that. That's why you can't just be eating everything, man. any and everything. I'm just gonna eat this, I'm gonna eat that. Right? Hold it down, man. Just calm down. Right? I'll start at verse I'll read down, well, I'll jump down to verse 27. It says, if any of them that believe not bid you to a feast, and ye be disposed to go, whatsoever is set before you, eat, asking no questions for conscience sake. So somebody invites you over, or we're having there's a feast going, and that's the ancient thing. When you read Job 1, and it tells you about, I think it's Job 1, it tells you about, his daughters, his sons and daughters, they would have feasts. That's not going into birthdays, that's going into feasts, right? They would have feasts. The only occasion where you see birthdays are celebrated is, I believe, Genesis 42, I believe, around Genesis, not Genesis 44, 42, I think, Pharaoh's birthday. I believe you also see it in Esther, and I believe you also see it in the book of John. Well, with John's head that was, put on a platter, right? But only two of those I can confirm: John's head, when John's head was cut off, and Pharaoh, in the time of Joseph, right? Those are birthdays, right? But point being is that someone brings you to a feast. Hey, look, we're gonna have a feast here. You're coming over, right? It says, eat, asking no questions for conscience sake. However, is Paul saying you can eat food sacrificed to idols? No, he is not. Right? When you read verse 28, but if any man say unto you, this is offered in sacrifice unto idols, eat not for his sake that showed it, and for conscience sake, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. So now, if someone told you, look, hey man, right, they whisper to you and they say, hey, I have this halal sandwich, right? This halal feast we're going to be having. Are you coming? Are you turning up? Bring your family. Bring your whole family so we can all commit fornication, spiritual fornication together. We're going to eat food sacrificed unto idols, right? And they say that to you, hey, and you go and eat, you are going off, right? He says, yeah, this is sacrifice to damn Allah, right? That's off. That's off. So you're not supposed to eat of that, right? And my notes, right, verse 28, it says, but if they tell you it's like, say, even birthdays, man, as a birthday meal, don't eat that, man. It's a birthday meal, Halloween, Christmas, some pagan Easter rubbish, man. One of these things, and you go and you eat of that, that's off, right? These Christmas meals, right? Okay, it's a Christmas meal. We're having a Christmas meal. That's what they do at work. Oh, it's a Christmas get together. We're all gonna have food, and hey, I'm not doing that. Right? That's what it says, right? And it says in verse 29, it says, First Corinthians 10:29, conscience, I say, not thine own, but of others. For why is my liberty judged of another man's conscience? And I've got a note where it says, men or women who have a weak mind, this would defile his conscience. Because essentially, if I saw someone, let's say brothers, obviously brothers in WFI, let's see, we saw down brother Yaradan, right, of WFI Detroit. You see brother Yaradan eating a damn bacon sandwich. You're gonna be confounded. You'd be, or Raya or Amos, or Yashapal, I believe, right? Or Tazama. You see any of these brothers, right, in the States eating certain foods, are you that might knock your faith, right? But these are men, obviously, right? That might knock your faith. But the point being is that a brother's conscience, right? His mind, he'd be wounded, man, right? His mind would be actually wounded, right? It says, and the point of that, man, when you read the book of Maccabees, right? They try to use certain men to eat foods sacrificed unto idols, right? And just unclean foods, right? This is First Maccabees, right? Just to bring that point up about the abomination of desolation. This is First Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 54. Now the 15th day of the month Casselu, in the 140 and 5th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar, and builded idols throughout the cities of Judah on every side. That's that abomination of desolation where they defiled, they offered all kinds of evil foods, man, right? And they brought in wicked gods, man, right? This is First Maccabees. See that? First Maccabees 1 and verse 59. Now the 5 and 20th day of the month, they did eat sacrifice. It's like they did sacrifice upon the idol altar, which was upon the altar of God. At which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women. No, it's not that. Right, so like I'm gonna jump back to verse number 40. 5. It says, and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifices and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbath and festival days, and pollute the sanctuary and holy people, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts. You see that? So that's what they were doing, man, going into that abominable foods that they were setting up, man. But when you go further, man, when you read Second Maccabees, right, and First Maccabees and Second Maccabees essentially is similar to the Gospels, right? It's the same account, you know what I'm saying, essentially, right? But this is Second Maccabees, chapter 6, right? And we know about, how the priest, he was constrained to eat, but he didn't eat, right? This is I'll read that first. It's Second Maccabees 6, and I'll read verse 18. Eleazar, one of the principal scribes, an aged man, and of a well-favored countenance, was constrained to open his mouth and to eat swine's flesh. So imagine using that account today. That's what they do. They're gonna use LeBron James, damn, I don't know, man, Skepta, JME, and they're gonna have them damn wearing dresses or eating certain foods, man. Every other Jake that sees that, they're gonna say, wow, Skepta's doing that. Damn, staring at the screen like this. Oh, I gotta do it as well. Maybe now I'll start getting all the women. It's madness, right? That's the mindset that it would trigger. Because even when you read, because obviously he refused, man, and he chose to die, and I'll read on, in verse number, where is it, man? I'll read verse 21. Right, I'll read down, Lord willing, because I got 4% on my phone. Right, Second Maccabees 6 and verse 19. But he choosing rather to die gloriously than to live stained with such an abomination. So pork was an abomination. It doesn't change. It didn't change, man. Spit it forth and came of his own accord to the torment, as it behoved them to come that are resolute to stand out against such things that are not, so like as are not lawful for love of life to be tasted. So it's off to taste pork, right? So and then here's another account, verse 21. But they that had the charge of the wicked feast, so that's a feast. Then you see that feast day spirit, man, right? That's a feast, and they will obviously certain foods, right? They will eat that, right? That's off, right? It says, but they that had the charge of that wicked feast for the old acquaintance, they had with the man taking him aside, besought him to bring flesh of his own provision, such as was lawful for him to use, and make as if he did eat of the flesh taken from the sacrifice commanded by the king. So they were gonna use that. Say, yo, look, right? Don't worry. It doesn't have to be pork. Just bring chicken and say that it's whatever, and then eat it, right? But this is what he said. It says, in verse 31, and thus this man died, leaving his death an example of noble courage and a memorial of virtue, not only to young men but unto all his nation. So he didn't eat that, man. He said, look, I'm gonna die. But you read the Quran, right? I think it's Surah Al-Baqarah, man, or Surah 2 or something. It tells you that you can eat certain foods, man, if you're about to die. You see that? So madness, right? But nonetheless, right, I'm gonna get few more, right? I'm gonna get First Corinthians chapter 8, Right, let's get First Corinthians chapter 8. All right, see if I can close it. Right, First Corinthians chapter 8. Right, it's the book of First Corinthians chapter 8, and I'm gonna start from verse number. I'm gonna start from verse 5. First Corinthians 8 and verse. I'll start from verse 4. It says, "As concerning therefore the eating of those things that are covered, that are offered in sacrifice unto idols, we know that an idol was nothing in the world, and that there is none other power but one." That's Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, straight up and down, right? "For though there be that are called gods, whether in heaven or in earth, as there be gods many and laws many, but to us there is but one power, the Father, of whom are all things, and we in him, and one Lord, Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, by whom are all things, and we by him." Right? So, what does that mean? Right? Obviously, there's one, obviously, Most High, Yahweh, right? Bashim Yahweh Shai, right? That exists, though these other idols, these idols, they exist, man. Right? These idols, they exist. Right? And verse 7, right? We'll jump to verse 7. "Howbeit, there is not in every man that knowledge." So every man doesn't know that, right? Every man doesn't have that belief. "For some with conscience of the idol unto this hour eat it as a thing offered unto an idol, and their conscience being weak is defiled." Right? So those that have a weak faith, a weak conscience, they have their mind defiled. That's why certain people, when you read Romans 14, and they would only eat herbs. No, 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 I don't want to eat that. What's that, chicken? No, 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 no. I got time. Right? I got I got a bit of herbs. Right? That's what they would do. Right? When you read Romans 14, verse 1, "Him that is weak in the faith receive you, but not to doubtful disputations. For one believeth that he may eat all things, another who is weak eateth herbs. Let not him that eateth despise him that eateth not, and let not him which eateth not judge him that eateth, for Yahweh have received him." Does that mean, okay, yeah, if he eats pork, if he eats pork or whatever? No, it doesn't mean that. It's telling you the types of men that they were. Those that ate anything, and those that ate certain things that weren't obviously that that ate certain things because they feared that it would be the meat or whatever, right, would be sacrificed unto an idol, right? That's why he would eat herbs, because again, he's weak in the faith, right? Because again, like we read, Paul was not saying you can eat that. He's saying, if again, it's about, because when you read Ezekiel 4, and I believe it's all right, so many precepts, man, but I'm on 2%, right? But this is Ezekiel, right? Lord willing, I think a lot has been covered, but this is Ezekiel 4, verse 13, not 13. Yeah, 4 and 13. "And the Lord said, even thus shall the children of Israel eat their defiled bread among the Gentiles, whither I will drive them." So wherever we go, we're eating food that's off, man. Right? We're eating things that are off. But essentially, right, right, in verse 13, right, it goes really into this, I'll read verse 12. I'll read verse 11. And through thy knowledge shall thy weak brother perish, for whom Christ died. But when ye sin so against the brethren, and wound their weak conscience, ye sin against Hamashiach. Wherefore, if meat maketh my brother to offend, I will eat no flesh while the world standeth, lest I make my brother to offend. Does that mean you're never going to eat meat again? Obviously, you won't eat meat. You're not going to tell this brother, hey, I got a chicken sandwich, come eat with me. That's gonna his conscience is gonna be, he's gonna feel, all right, that's kind of off, man. I ain't dealing with it, right? So if he offends your brother, you wouldn't obviously invite him to come and have a meal with you, man, right? But right, I think I covered quite a lot, man. But Lord willing, I still got some power, right? Lord willing, because I don't have like a phone camera stand, whatever, right? But when it comes to food sacrifice unto idols, can we eat them? Hell to the no, right? Hell to the no, man. Right? Hell to the no. My phone's charging now, so Lord willing, might even see if I can kind of keep going on, but I won't go on for too long, right? So, and Lord willing, I think I've established, that we can't eat food sacrifice unto idols, right? Yeah, Lord willing, that kind of hit the nail on the head, right? You know that it's being sacrificed unto Allah or whatever God these people believe in. Should you eat it? Hell no, right? Let's put it like that. Hell to the no, right? But hey, with that, I'll say all praises to Yahweh Shai. I say Shalom.